The first interlude. Why is this important? So this is the first of 3 models of conscious experience that are explored in the Mind Illuminated. It is a way to understand meditation and reality. All of the different moving parts of your mind and your conscious experience are explained in this model. By understanding this, you can understand what exactly you need to work on to improve your ability to meditate, to pay attention, to live a fulfilling life, because everything is filtered through your mind. And so if you have control over your mind, if you develop your mind, you will live a much, much more enjoyable life. So let's get into it. The first key parts that we need to understand are attention and peripheral awareness. What these are the building blocks of your conscious experience. They are different ways of knowing. So as a conscious being, the thing that defines you is that you know. You have these 5 sensations and then your mind sense, and you are aware of them. And so attention and peripheral awareness are different ways of being aware. So attention is more focused, singular, analytical. It can hone in on specific things. And peripheral awareness is more broad. It is holistic. It's not specific. It's more relational. So a clear example to highlight this is, let's say you're speaking to your friend and you're drinking tea at the same time, and it's a really, really delicious tea that you're drinking. You are paying attention to the conversation, but in your peripheral awareness, you're still feeling how nice the tea is, and you're feeling the sensations of drinking the tea. And maybe for a moment, your attention jumps from the conversation to the tea, and then it jumps back. But all of this time, you have a peripheral awareness, a larger context in which your attention is jumping around. And so both of these ways of knowing can both be introspective and extrospective. Just simply meaning that your attention can be directed inwards or it can be directed outwards. And the same with your peripheral awareness. You can have a peripheral awareness of your inner mindscape. So when you reflect back to see how you're doing, you're developing your introspective peripheral awareness. But let's say you're listening to sounds and watching colors outside, and your attention's focused on something, but you just are kind of letting the colors, sensations kind of wash over you. You're developing your extrospective peripheral awareness. And so, yeah, both can be inside and outside. Okay, so let's first start with attention. So attention can be directed and sustained. These are 2 ways of managing attention. So directing attention is simple. It just means moving it from one object to another. So it can be from a sound to a smell, from one object in your visual field to another. This is directing attention. Sustaining attention is the one that's a bit harder to do. Directing is quite straightforward and easy, but keeping your attention on an object for a prolonged period of time is much more difficult. So if I asked you to pay attention to this case here for 30 minutes without letting your attention waver once, you would probably find that very, very difficult or impossible to do. And this is why training these things is so magical. Once you actually can sustain your attention, it feels like a superpower. And so once you have the ability to do both of these things well, you will have developed stable attention, which is also known as concentration. So you can move your attention to something and hold it there for as long as you like in some cases. This is the first objective of meditation, stable attention. And the second one is powerful mindfulness. These 2 objectives together is what you are doing when you are meditating. You're trying to reach these objectives. And why? Why do you want to reach them? I'm going to explain more later down the line, or I'm going to explain more at the end of the video, the benefits of actually developing these 2 things. But before we go into that, I want to go into spontaneous attention, which is actually what we are confronted with most of the time in our day-to-day lives. We don't really have much experience usually with stable attention. So, spontaneous attention is attention that is scanning around, looking for things that it's interested in, looking for an object of interest. It's attention that is being captured from object to object, through sensation to sensation. It's alternating between two things. So a lot of the times we think we're multitasking, we're actually just jumping between two things in our conscious awareness. You can never actually truly multitask. And so this is how we spend most of our time, and this is how our attention is usually. Its default state, scanning, getting captured, just alternating between different things. So this is spontaneous attention. Now, let's move on to peripheral awareness. So peripheral awareness is really underdeveloped for a lot of people. This is this introspective awareness that we have, this ability to kind of scan our inner world, to take a snapshot of our inner mind, to see how we're feeling, to sit in a relaxed state and be able to let all of the external sensations, sounds just wash over us. This is the greater context for our attention and our ability to perceive reality. This gives us information about relationship and context. It's way more subtle, and the society and the world is very, very much attention focused. But not many people actually develop their peripheral awareness, and it is something that can be developed. This fancy word here, metacognitive introspective awareness, just means what I was talking about earlier. Your ability to see inwards and to see how you're feeling, to see your thoughts for what they are, to see your emotions for what they are. Just the ability to reflect inwards and to have perspective on your own mind. That is what this is. Jumping on to the second objective of meditation, mindfulness. First, we need to define what mindfulness is, because this word just gets thrown around so much, but in the Mind Illuminated, it's defined very, very precisely. So mindfulness comes from the Pali word sati. And sati basically just means paying attention or being watchful. But that is a very, very limited definition of what mindfulness actually is and what sati actually means and the implications it has. So I'm going to give you a full proper definition from the book. So sati is the optimal interaction between attention and peripheral awareness, which requires increasing the overall conscious power of the mind. I know it's a mouthful of a definition, but it really clearly explains it in the book. So the optimal interaction between attention and peripheral awareness just simply means you are able to balance your peripheral awareness and your attention without one overpowering the other. So you're able to stay open and holistic. Your peripheral awareness is free and attentive while still being laser focused on an object of meditation. And these things are actually not at odds with each other. They feed into each other. And so the more open you're able to keep your mind, the easier it is to focus on an object. Because it means that if something does appear in your peripheral awareness that might capture your attention, you can just see it in your peripheral awareness before your attention jumps to it. And so they work hand in hand, and it's about developing the relationship between these two things, and then also increasing the overall conscious power of the mind. And this is also, it might sound kind of confusing. How do you power up the mind? But it's actually really, really straightforward. So powering up the mind is basically just weight training for the mind. You focus on things that are more and more subtle, and you level up your ability to pay attention. So times in your experience where you're paying attention to your emotions, to your sadness, and you're feeling all these different subtle tones of this emotion. Maybe you're listening to music and you're hearing things you've never heard before in that music. You're developing the power of your mind, or your mind is in a powerful state at that point. And you can permanently increase this. And so the gains are your attention doesn't fade. You have better context in your peripheral awareness. You're able to see relationships better. You're able to choose what to pay attention better. So let's say you get into a crazy argument. You're able to see the context of your anger and you can choose not to get swept up in it because you have a strong attention and strong peripheral awareness, and your mind is just more powerful. And so the last bit is the progression of mindfulness in the stages. And so, in the Mind Illuminated, there's 10 stages. And the progression of mindfulness really starts at stage 3. And at stage 3, you sustain extrospective awareness while attention is focused. And so this is what I was speaking about earlier, that ability to pay attention to all of the sensations external to you in an open, holistic way. In stage 4 to 6, you develop strong, stable attention and introspective awareness. So paying attention to your inner landscape in that open, holistic way while maintaining the object of meditation. Stage 5, you level up the power of the whole system of your consciousness by focusing on subtler sensations and really refining that focus. Stage 6, stable attention and perfect metacognitive introspective awareness. So at stage 6, you'll develop stable attention and your introspective awareness will be maxed out. And what that just means is you can just see everything that's going on inside your head. And so stage 8, this is maxed out conscious development. There's still stage 9 and 10 after that. But at this point, you have developed your mind to the point where you can pay attention to what you want and you have perfect open peripheral awareness as well. And so this is the progression of mindfulness along the stages. A summary of everything that we learned. So we learned that there's 2 ways of knowing the world as a conscious being: attention and peripheral awareness. Attention is selective, focused, analytical, and peripheral awareness is open, holistic, relational. And mindfulness is the optimal interaction between these 2 ways of knowing and an overall increase of power to your overall capacity to just know. And there are 2 objectives of meditation. It is developing stable attention and increasing mindfulness. And once we develop these 2 different objectives of meditation, we'll have increased clarity, more insights, more wisdom. We'll be able to choose the right actions in our lives, be able to have more perspective. You'll be upset less. There's just so many different benefits. You'll be able to do the work that you want to do when you want to do it without your attention being captured by other things. So that's a summary of the first interlude. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe, like, all of that good stuff. I am going to be releasing a meditation app on Android inspired by the Mind Illuminated really soon, probably in the next week or so. So stay tuned for that. I will post that in one of my video descriptions when it's out. So yeah, that's everything. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully this helped. Hopefully it was a good summary. And yeah, as always, peace and love.